Aggressive driver rips through road daily, dad teaches him an expensive lesson. He watched in anticipation. He was about to know exactly who's boss around this neighborhood. His heart raced as he looked up just in time to see the truck steer full speed towards the cones he set out. He smiled as he heard the loud crack that rippled through the air as the truck rammed into the first cone. Daniel House is a proud family man who loves nothing more than to relax at home in his garden and watch his young daughter play around outside. So it's no surprise that when someone threatened his little girl right outside his house, he would let all hell break loose just to teach him a lesson. One fateful summer's day, Daniel supervised his little girl as she played outside their house with a skateboard. It was a joyful habit until the truck driver made a deathly entrance into their lives. Daniel watched the oncoming truck, expecting it to slow down at the sight of his little girl, but instead, the driver floored it and sped past his house while yelling at him and his daughter to keep off the road. Daniel glared in disbelief while he gathered himself in time to yell angrily back, "Slow down." He walked over to his little girl and brought her closer towards the house, thankful she was okay and that this was a one-time occurrence. Little did he know, this was just the beginning. The truck driver was about to become a familiar face around his neighborhood. After Daniel's first encounter with the reckless truck driver, he saw him twice more. Both times, he drove as fast and recklessly as the first. The third time Daniel saw him would be when he was out mowing his lawn. He saw him coming and walked out to the edge of the road to wave him down to talk. The driver, however, had different plans. With his ignorance intact, he saw Daniel signaling him down to pull up beside him and decided to rev the engine into fifth gear and speed right past him. Daniel watched as the driver laughed like a maniac as he flew by with his engine redlining. That's the moment something snapped in Daniel. He was going to have to change his tactics. And he did just that. Later that day, Daniel drove to the hardware store and grabbed 3 4-foot orange safety cones. He raced back home and put a poster on each of them saying, "Slow down, residential neighborhood, kids at play." He placed them outside his house on the road. A few days later, he woke up to find the cones scattered on the floor after being run over. For Daniel, this meant war. He thought about what he could do to get the message through to this dangerous driver. Suddenly, he came up with an ingenious plan. He purchased 3 new cones and filled them with cement and steel rebar. He put them back outside on the street in front of his house with the same 3 signs as before. Now all he has to do is wait. He was pottering around in his garage when he heard the truck engine revving. Daniel looked up just in time to see him steer full speed towards the cones. Daniel's heart raced as the truck rammed into the first cone with its bumper. The truck's front lifted upwards and crashed into the second and third. The truck came to a screeching halt. Mike grabbed a baseball bat from his garage as he approached the now venomous driver. He sat in his truck, stewing in disbelief and anger. The delirious laugh and smug smile wiped completely from his features. Mike relished in it. The truck driver saw Daniel, immediately jumped out of his truck and headed straight for him. He was very angry, screaming at Daniel about his wrecked truck. But Daniel remained calm. Once the man finished yelling, Daniel offered him 2 options. He could either call the cops straight away and explain to them why he intentionally ran over the safety cones, or he could call a tow truck and put this mess behind him. Which was it going to be? The man weighed up his options and decided to call the tow truck. Shortly, the tow truck arrived and carried the damaged truck and reckless man away. Daniel never saw him or his truck after that. He must have avoided his street on purpose or else left his job. But although Daniel didn't see him, he was still worried about one thing. He wondered if the man was going to want revenge for what Daniel had done. After all, he knew where Daniel lived and Daniel had seen what kind of man he was. He seemed dangerous with an uncontrollable temper. Luckily, nothing happened and Daniel moved out of the area with his family a couple of years later. But what did others think? Years later, Daniel posted this encounter on Reddit and it blew up. Many people applauded him for teaching the man a valuable lesson, but others had something else to say. Many questioned the actions of Daniel, claiming them to be illegal and dangerous. They warned him to take the post down over fears of being busted and sued. But Daniel had this to say. "This happened a long time ago. The legal time limit is expired for anyone to do anything about it in any legal capacity," he stated. "I consider myself sharper than the average bear, and I didn't enact my plan without thinking it through and thinking about the consequences of my actions. I know a thing or two about how the law works. And it looks like he's not wrong, so far." Thank you for watching this fantastic story. Please tap one of the two videos on your screen for another amazing wonder stories.